Antonio Romanucci, Antonio Romanucci from the law firm of Romanucci and Blandon. And then we will move into comments by three members of Javier Ambler's family and his girlfriend as well. You will hear from Javier Ambler Sr., his mother Maritza, Maritza, and Michelle Bieta, Bieta, who is a girlfriend and the mother of his young son. I'm going to turn over now, please, to Attorney Jeff Edwards, and we will have reporter Q&A at the end. If you can use that Q&A function in Zoom and introduce yourself by name and media outlet, we'll turn it over to you one at a time, and you will get the mic live to ask your question. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, please unmute.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Edwards, and it's an absolute honor to be talking to you today. We filed a federal lawsuit seeking to hold Williamson County accountable for the horrific death of Javier Ambler. And I am here to talk to you about the honor of representing an absolutely wonderful family who lost their son. And as the father of three, I can tell you that there's nothing more horrific. And lawyers throughout this press conference will talk to you about the national problem in terms of police misconduct, and in particular in the African-American community. But I want to focus this case on the local police misconduct that happened here. In a dizzying array of bad policy choices by the sheriff, a law enforcement organization, the Williamson County Sheriff's Department, essentially became a made-for-TV episode, encouraging reckless police chases, encouraging excessive force, and as the complaint shows, there is ample evidence to suggest that the sheriff was directly involved and countenanced these policies that directly led to Javier Ambler's death. And while I am hesitant to go into it, it is so important that I need to talk about what really happened. And Ben Crump, who will be talking to you next, and Tony Romanucci later, are involved in other litigation that is eerily similar to this. But a young man, 40 years old, father of two beautiful boys, had a slightly bad day and needed help, and was met with tasers and force and unconscionable conduct that resulted in his death as he pleaded for help. As he told the officers, "I can't breathe," not once, not twice, but more than 4 times. His last words were please. The video that you all will be shown shows a man in obvious distress, pleading for help, who cannot do what the officers are insisting he does. He was morbidly obese, and because of that disability, he could not physically do what they were asking. But he was not aggressive. He was trying to do his best. And he was met with a venomous assault that ended his life. And this was not a situation where the officers had to do what they did. In fact, it was unreasonable for them to continue doing what they did. And unfortunately, it appears to be the product of a television show. A television show where, according to reports, important video evidence has been destroyed. Now, I want you to ask yourselves why. Why did this happen? Why was a 40-year-old black man targeted for having his high beams on? Why was he tasered numerous times when he was just standing there unarmed, attempting to kneel? Why was he placed in a prone position and then continuously tasered. And I want you to ask yourselves if that would have happened to your son or daughter. And I know this to my core, it wouldn't have happened to me, and it wouldn't have happened to my kids. And when you listen to Javier Ambler and Michelle and Maritza talk, please understand their parents, and Javier was their little baby, and he leaves behind two beautiful little boys, Javon and Joel. Javon, a 15-year-old who is the spitting image of his father, who is also a standout football player, and who also has a generous spirit, who would give you the shirt off his back, just like Javier would. Over the last several months, I've gotten to know this family, and they are just wonderful people. And I think they're showing tremendous courage filing this lawsuit, trying to make some significant change. But please understand at its core, what happened to their son is an absolute tragedy if it was just part of one situation. That it happens so repeatedly, so regularly, ought to cause everyone a moment of pause and say, this just can't keep going on. And every time we file one of these lawsuits, we say that we're standing up, we're going to make a difference. Well, this one is, okay? We're going to ask you to all say the name Javier Ambler, to know the name Javier Ambler, because he's my son, he's my friend, he's your son, he's your friend. And with that, I just want to turn it over to Ben Crump, who's going to talk a little bit about the Ambler case and the situation nationwide before we talk to Tony Ramanucci and the people that I know you really want to hear from, which are the Amblers themselves. Thank you very much, and we'll answer questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's just so unbelievable that here we are again with another I can't breathe case. Another black man just asking for the police to give him some degree of humanity. Not asking for anything out of the ordinary, just asking for consideration, respect, decency. Just asking for a breath to extend life. I am very honored to be here with these great lawyers, Attorney Jeff Edwards and Attorney Tony Ramanucci, who I also have the honor of working with on the George Floyd case. And as I listen to Jeff speak, it's very difficult to separate these two tragedies. And then, Mr. Ambler, I also think about Eric Gardner, who we watched say I Can't Breathe in Staten Island, New York, 5 years ago. And we hoped that that would send a message to America that we're better than this, that Black Lives Matter. However, here we are in Austin, Texas, still facing this epidemic of chokeholds against Black men specifically, with no consideration or respect. And so for too many Black citizens, life in America feels like a reality television show. We're all trapped in with a plot that plays out over and over again. Every episode involves an encounter with police that results in injury or worse, death. But for the Black residents of Williamson County, as Attorney Edwards just articulated, their lives were threatened by an actual reality TV show. Sheriff Robert Chody chose dramatic content for live PD over safeguarding the lives of the residents that he was sworn to protect and defend. The sheriff and his department already had a long history of excessive force against people of color, as Attorney Ramanucci and Attorney Edwards and I have been able to confirm through research. But this behavior increased dramatically when the TV cameras were on. How else can you explain that police chases and violent encounters doubled in the year after the live PD contract was signed by the county officials? Sheriff's deputies used twice as much force as often when the television cameras were following them. They put on a show for the audience at the expense of Williamson County's citizens, and it ultimately cost Javier Ambler II his life. And then, when the death of Mr. Ambler was inconveniently caught on video, Sheriff Chody told the producers to destroy the evidence. How many times will a Black person have to choke out the words, "I can't breathe," before meaningful police reform is adopted from one corner of this nation to the other? The behavior of Sheriff Chody and his deputies was nothing short of disgusting. They must be held accountable. And just like in George Floyd's case, until we get justice for Javier Ambler II, none of us can breathe. At this time, I take great pleasure in having Attorney Tony Ramanucci come and give his perspectives. And I again thank Attorney Edwards for his insight from the perspective there in Austin, Texas. Mr. Ramanucci.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Ramanucci, and I stand before you very honored and humbled to be here on behalf of the Ambler family, and I thank Jeff Edwards and Ben Crump. Ladies and gentlemen, the right to bodily integrity is a bedrock of our United States Constitution. And when someone says, "Please, I can't breathe," you would think that that bedrock of our Constitution would be followed, it would be obeyed. And here we stand once again, having that right to bodily integrity, the right to breathe, something that we all do, that our brains do without even us thinking, because if we don't breathe, we don't live. We stand here once again talking about a man who says, "I can't breathe," where the police officers take those words as folly as opposed to truth. And indeed, what happened? They let him die. As Mr. Crump suggested, we don't just stand here today on single-handedly in a single event on another incident of "I can't breathe." We've witnessed this so many times across the country. And it was mentioned that there were 2 or 3 other cases like this. But there are dozens and dozens where police officers dangerously place victims in a prone position, which we now know to be dangerous. And as they speak, "I can't breathe," the police do not let up, but indeed they continue on. And in this instance, the moving force behind those police officers using excessive force was Williamson County. Why? Because it was a reality TV show. It was suggested that black men in this country live in a reality TV show. So this case is proof that being a black man in this country is dangerous in and of itself. Because there was no crime that Javier was committing on that March night last year. His crime was having the wrong skin color. His crime was being disabled. And in combination of this deadly game show that was being filmed for entertainment, and I asked you, for whose entertainment was this snuff film being made? Because that's what happened. Javier's life was taken before the cameras of Live PD. And what happened to that film? What happened to that video? You heard what Mr. Edwards said. That video was destroyed. It was altered. Say what you want about it. But there was a reason for it. And the reason for it was to deny accountability. It was to deny transparency. It was actually even more simple than that. It was to deny truth. Because when the truth comes out, justice can be restored. And in this case, justice will be restored. When you look at that lawsuit, you will see that there are some theories of liability there which may raise eyebrows. Why is the Americans with Disabilities Act Pled in this lawsuit? Well, it's very important in this case because Javier Ambler was disabled almost by definition. He told the police that he had a chronic heart condition, and just by eyesight alone, Javier was obese. That, by definition, is a disability. And because Williamson County is required by law as a public entity to not discriminate against disabled people, Javier was discriminated against twice that night. Unimaginably, he was discriminated against because of his skin color and because of his disability. So when questions are raised, why do black men run from police? Why are they afraid of them? Well, that's because white police officers are a life hazard to black men. They know that in an encounter with a white police officer that their chances of morbidity are high. And maybe Javier had that premonition. Maybe he knew. And so when he went up against those two discriminatory factors on that night, ultimately we know he had no chance. So this lawsuit is about the use of excessive force. This lawsuit is about the unconstitutional moving forces that caused Javier's death, that the county promulgated, their customs, their practices, and their policies. It was inviting reality TV into a deadly game. And it was the discriminatory actions that they failed to undertake when they knew or should have known that Javier was disabled. Any one of those could have saved his life. Instead, choices were made to end it. And that's why we stand before you. And now I would like to introduce to you the father of Javier, Javier Sr.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Javier Ambler, Sr. Normally, I'm a man of very few words. Military veteran for over 23 years. And my boy, my fox-souled buddy, I'm not gonna have him again. I'm so sorry, but I get emotional anytime I hear anything about my son. He was my firstborn. He was my firstborn, you know? And I'm here to tell you, they took him away, and me get myself together.
It's okay.
They took him away from me way too early. He was supposed to bury me. And I was hoping for somebody to pinch me and just tell me, hey, this is just a bad dream. Javier, wake up, your son is outside, or your son is coming tomorrow to bless the dinner table, you know, because that's what he always did, you know. If he had a dime and somebody in the family needed money, he would say, here you go, here's a nickel for you, you know. You know, my boy, my fishing buddy, my foxhole buddy, you know, I bought a boat for Father's Day, and that's the first person I called. Let's go to Sparta Lake and enjoy the boat. And we had the boys with him. We had Javon with him. At that time, Joel was too young to come, you know. But all of those things have been taken away from me, from my wife and myself, you know.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you very much. Marisa, would you like to talk briefly? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Williamson Ambler. I am Javier Ambler's mom. And I just want to thank everyone who has been supporting the family through this loss from the time it happened up until today. My son was a loving person. He has friends from all over the United States that are still reaching out to the family, sending stuff, anything they can send, just to let us know that they're thinking about us, that they're with us, they're standing with us. I just want to let everyone, this Williamson County and everyone know, they may not have known who Javier were, but just to let them know, he was someone that was loved up until today. He just recently had a birthday, and my grandson, not his son, but my other grandson, his comment was, he wished my son was here. He supported him through everything. And he just wanted my son to see him play football. And he was so sorry that my son is going to miss out on that. His son misses him every day. He dreams about him. But I keep telling him, don't worry about it, because he's here looking over you and your others, you and Joel. He's over here watching over you guys, and he would not leave us, because that's the type of person he was. He was always there for us. His sister, she is still fighting for justice, and that's all we're asking for. Justice, get some kind of justice. This lawsuit is not going to bring my child back, but it is going to represent some kind of justice for my son, and that's all we're asking for. And regardless of what it is, he may not be here in person, but he would always live in our heart. I mean, you're always in love. We are fighting for justice for you, baby. Thank you.
Michelle. Just introduce yourself.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Beitia. I am the mother of Javier's 4-year-old son, and I'm here in behalf of Joel's. I would like to say that my baby misses his dad like no other person. He asks for his dad every day. Just yesterday, he said that he asked when his dad is coming and if his dad was gonna call him. So I would like to say that I can't possibly explain the incredible toll that we're going through with our son. This will continue to follow him in the years to come as he grows up. You can't imagine how painful it is to tell my son that his dad is not, that he's not going to see his dad anymore. That he's not going to have his father's support and encouragement, someone to play with or talk to as he becomes a young man himself. What I can promise is that we will make sure that he knows what a good man his father was. Something has to change. Something has to change. In Javier's name, we need justice, but we also need to reform so that our son can grow up in a community and a world that will treat him fairly and can feel safe. Hav, I will always keep your memory. I will always have Joel see your pictures. I talk to him about you. I read him texts that you sent. My baby's only 4 years old. He will miss a lot having a dad to teach him stuff as a boy, to grow up not having a dad. I can't even imagine my baby. He doesn't understand where his daddy's at. But we need justice, and we'll get justice for you, Hav. Thank you.
Well, I can't possibly add to that. Just from one father to another, one parent to another. Obviously, you can see the raw emotion and the real depth of the tragedy here. We are prepared to answer questions if any of the media has them. Obviously, I hope you understand that the parents and Michelle will not be taking any more questions at this time. I hope you can empathize with the tragedy that they've gone through and understand just the last 15 minutes of them speaking. I hope that I'm never in a position, I hope none of you are in a position to have to do that and show that type of courage. But given the importance of the case and the fact that, to its credit, the majority of leaders in Williamson County have called on the sheriff to resign given his conduct, we'd like to open the floor or pass it back to Jennifer to coordinate any questions that the media might have. And again, Tony and I will answer questions from here, and Ben Crump is also available to answer questions. And thank you for your time. And if this lawsuit makes it just a little bit less likely that Joel and Javon have to endure what their father had to endure, then it'll all be worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Our first two questions are from Chody Barr at KXAN. Chody, if you would give us about 3 seconds to activate your microphone, you can have the floor.
Thank you all. When you read the lawsuit, there appears to be a lot of circumstance around the allegations that you all have leveled against Sheriff's Office regarding training, which would have led to what happened here. Did you have in your research, have you gone through the training materials that Williamson County uses where you have identified any lapses that would have allowed a deputy to, instead of de-escalate, to go right to the non-lethal restraints that would often include maybe not taking into consideration someone's weight, the fact that they've told them multiple times, I can't breathe. Is there anything in that you have identified that needs to change in the training policies as they stand now?
Sure, I can give it a try. So we haven't gotten deep into what's called a discovery of the case yet, and all of that I think will be uncovered. Right now we can only go by what we have, and what I can tell you is this, is that many police departments may have a protocol on how to restrain somebody, especially in a prone position when they're saying that I can't breathe. However, what we experience throughout the country is that there is no execution on those policies. The policy may be there, but they actually are not trained on the policy, where it becomes routine, or it becomes muscle memory, or it becomes anything under any circumstance which can save life as opposed to take a life, as I mentioned earlier. What we do know is this: Javier needed medical assistance more than he needed policing. He was not a criminal. He did not commit a crime. So when you are neither one of those, then you do not turn on the fire hose to police somebody like Javier Ambler. What you do is you de-escalate and you take the situation down, calm him down, and then make sure that he's in an appropriate position of restraint, especially with his weight. So that's what I can tell you. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, it's really important that we have access to the particular names of training courses, and we'll go through in the discovery process and identify deficiencies in that regard. But the most important aspect of training is the day-to-day training that the leadership employs towards its deputies. And I will tell you that the point of the training allegations is that the sheriff was either devoid of teaching his deputies the right way or actively encouraging this. And that's why you can't look at it just as what's on a piece of paper. When you combine the fact that this was a reality television show, combined with the emphasis on training, and what I suspect the evidence will show as we find out the actual training or lack thereof that these deputies received, is that either they were counseled that the words "I can't breathe" don't actually mean "I can't breathe," because, and wait for this, someone who's saying "I can't breathe" is actually talking. And that's been a dangerous common occurrence throughout other cases in Houston, in New York. I'm sure Ben can talk more about this, but that is one of the danger signs and the need for training that frankly needs to change. And that is one of the obvious situations. Sometimes it's better to be a 12-year-old and ask a 12-year-old the question, what should you do if someone says they can't breathe and are obviously struggling? Should you A, continue to exercise force and make it worse for them, or B, help? It's not even what Tony said, medical assistance, it's assistance. Okay, this was a nice person in obvious distress. And we're very confident that the allegations about deficient training will bear out. But as with any lawsuit, pieces of paper are one thing. When we get people under oath and start deposing them, then I think we'll find out how deficient the training was. Thank you for letting me elaborate.
And if I could just say one thing as to what Attorney Edwards and Attorney Ramanucci said. There has been instances, like Jeff said, of many black men when they say "I can't breathe." Tony, we heard it in George Floyd's case. Officer Derek Chauvin said, "Well, he's talking. That means he can breathe." And it's so outrageous that these are the people who are supposed to be trained professionals to be able to deal with medical crises, people who are supposed to be able to preserve life and not take life. But so often what we have found around America is that there is deliberate indifference for the constitutional rights of arrestees. And what we have discovered in many of these cases, that is emphasized when it's African Americans, that either it's deliberate indifference or they are just intentionally trying to be brutal. And I guess that's what helped ratings on this television reality show. And it is just offensive when you think about the fact that they targeted, seems like, these minorities to build their ratings and being extra brutal and sadistic against black men like Javier in America. At what point do we say we're going to give all of our citizens the equal consideration and respect that the law demands? It does get emotional. I heard Mr. Ambler talk, and unfortunately that is the reality for too many Black people in America, parents of color. And so any parent hopefully can understand the pain and the heartbreak that these parents, this mother of his child is going through. And what Tony said just struck me. White police often become the killers of Black men, and for reasons that nobody would ever imagine. He had on high beam lights. He is dead because he had on high beam lights, and they wanted some ratings on a television show. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have several questions from Hannah Rapoli with NBC. Hannah.
Okay. Hi, can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, very well.
Thanks. Yeah, hi, Hannah Rapoli with the investigative unit at NBC. Thank you so much for talking with us. This question is for the entire team, but I just wanted to clarify a statement. Mr. Crump, you said the following, that when Mr. Ambler's death was caught on video, Sheriff Chody told producers to destroy the evidence. I just wanted to clarify that. Does the team have evidence that Sheriff Chody directly directed producers to destroy the live PD video? Has the legal team received any kind of information regarding why or how the corresponding live PD footage was destroyed?
Let me directly address that. That is something that, unfortunately, because it's the subject of multiple criminal investigations and an indictment in Williamson County, that I'm not comfortable disclosing. If anyone would like to comment further than that, I think that is important to let the criminal process breathe a bit, as there is, at least one indictment and very, very possibly more to come.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a very tactful way to say that we don't want to invade the province of the criminal court case. We don't want to unfairly, unduly influence it, but certainly there are allegations out there, and I think we should let it stand at that and not comment any further with respect to the ongoing criminal case.
Next question is from Tony Cantu with Patch.com. Tony, are you able to ask your question? If not, I can certainly convey. Okay, let me move forward in doing that. Tony's question was, what are the damages being sought? How many siblings did Mr. Ambler have? So two questions there, damages and siblings, please.
Thank you.
I defer to attorney.
Yeah. Javier had one sister who is devastated. One sister who's devastated and who has done some just really inspirational, heroic things. If you come to Austin, you'll see a mural that she was instrumental in helping create. And she is one of the leaders in terms of keeping his name alive and making sure that Williamson County understands that there, I think what Ben said, that there is someone with decency and a human being there. In terms of the damages, we litigate that in a federal courthouse, and I can tell you that they are significant, and all you have to do is listen to the depth of emotion and devastation and see and hear the loss in Maritza and in Javier and Michelle's voices. I trust you that you can imagine that a 15-year-old boy who loses his father and a 4, soon-to-be 5-year-old boy who loses his father. I'm not here to tell you a number, but we will be asking a jury to try to evaluate that. But again, I always leave that to the province of the jury. It's one of the most important things that the community does. And I do think that it's very significant that the community has come out and said that this needs to stop, and that the leadership of Williamson County, again, to its credit, has called for Sheriff Chody, based on what he did, to resign. That the representative that represents this district has said that this is simply unacceptable, or words to that effect. So there isn't a particular number other than I can't imagine going through this as the father of three. I know Tony shares that. I know Ben shares that. All I will say is that it is very, very significant. Thank you.
I think the other important component of this lawsuit is not only the damages or the harms that the police and the county caused in killing Javier, but also the injunctive part of this, the changes in the reform that we want to bring so that this doesn't continue to happen. You hear us saying we don't want this to happen again. Well, we mean that, because there has to be better training in order for this not to happen. There has to be consequences for police officers who don't follow and obey their training. Once that culture is changed, and it takes some time, then you will see meaningful change and reform, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, cliche though it may be, the first step in solving any problem is admitting that you have one. And again, Williamson County appears to admit that it does indeed have a problem. We'll put Sheriff Chody under oath eventually, and we'll see if he has the courage to also admit that what happened here is reprehensible and cannot be continued in law enforcement.
Thank you. We do have a follow-up question from Jody Barr at KXAN.
Can't hear it.
How's that?
Very good. Go,
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay. I think the lawsuit also alluded to there was a stop in June, just about 2 months after Mr. Ambler's stop. It was the Ramsey Mitchell stop. This was actually broadcast on Live PD. You guys are aware of that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In that stop, you also see a person who is telling these deputies, I can't breathe, as one deputy has him in a carotid restraint at that point in time. And then the deputy also gives commentary on the national broadcast just after this arrest of Ramsey Mitchell about using that technique as an effective means to gain compliance and to get this person in handcuffs. The sheriff's office, after Ramsey Mitchell, like in the Ambler case, they do a review of what happened, sign off. All these officers are exonerated of any wrongdoing in both cases. It appears now that the sheriff's office is poised to defend the actions, again, in Mr. Ambler's case, by virtue of the fact that there was an internal affairs conducted. Those deputies were cleared, and then the same two deputies in Ramsey Mitchell, again, cleared. Does this speak to, do you believe this speaks to maybe could the training be sufficient, and maybe these two cases have identified potentially problem deputies? Or do you think that the sheriff's office's sanction of these actions by the exonerations in the internal review, what do you think is going on here just based off of what you know at this point?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the details of the Ramsey footage. People can watch the video and understand that. The fundamental problem is that someone would listen to the expression "I can't breathe" and disregard it outright. What's important, and frankly a little bit different in the Ambler case, is that Javier was in obvious distress the entire time and was not struggling in any sort of way. The important part of your question, does the fact that the so-called investigation after the fact, in which the sheriff or his designee appears to have countenanced this unconscionable conduct, does that evidence poor training or a need for more training? And the short answer is, of course. Anyone who looks at this and says this was consistent with proper training is simply incorrect. It's not. I mean, I think Ben and Tony both said it very eloquently. I can't breathe said 4 to 5 times, and not just said as some means of evading. It was said because he was in obvious distress, combined with, I have a heart condition, I need help, with his last words being, please. Very reminiscent of the George Floyd situation. And so if you're asking me, do these officers need to be trained? Of course they do. Okay, does this office need to be investigated by an independent body? Of course it does. One of the problems with law enforcement is when they ask the sheriff's subordinate to say, is this okay? What do you think's gonna happen? You know, we have independent investigations of oil spills. We need independent investigations of police homicides. I mean, the incentives are too high to throw this under the rug. And we're talking about this very significantly almost 20 months after it happened. But for a City of Austin Police Department video, we may not ever be talking about this. Okay? And so, you know, at a minimum, Live PD, we know, was filming that event. Live PD was allowed to leave with important evidence, video evidence of an actual killing of a human being. Why were they allowed to leave? Why did Live PD actually leave? And why did Live PD not preserve, obviously, important evidence? These are still questions that we need answers to. But I will say that the sheriff himself and the sheriff's lawyer were out there on the scene, according to very, very high-level people. And so, again, are the training practices deficient? Of course they are. Were there red flags here? All you need to do is read the complaint to see that the officers involved did have checkered histories, did have disciplinary histories, and you'll hear, as we develop this case from police practice experts, that allegations of dishonesty that are delineated in the complaint, that is the most serious allegation against a police officer and the most obvious red flag. That person should not be involved in law enforcement. Okay, the job is to protect and serve, end of story. So the answer is, of course, they need to change the way they're doing things.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can add to that, Jeff, that was an excellent answer, is that the legal theory behind your question, is it Mr. Barr, is ratification. And so as behavior continues to be ratified, as bad behavior continues to go unchecked, shall we say, as it continues to go unpunished, that behavior not only continues with that individual, but it also it continues within the department, which creates the culture of impunity. So when you look at event after event after event, that's what ratification is, and that's what causes the bad behavior. That's why the training is deficient, because ultimately then the Austin Police Department or Williamson County would put itself under consent decree if they continue to actually police themselves and do things the right way. I don't know if you had anything else to add to that, Ben.
I would just say this. When you look at the video of Javier and you look at the video of George Floyd, you obviously see similarities that they are not resisting. They're not posing any threat of violence at the time that they are being restrained. They are literally saying, I can't breathe. And how many times does a black man have to say, I can't breathe, when they're not posing any threat, they're not resisting, they're not being violent to the police before the police believes them? How many times?
Thank you, gentlemen. We are out of questions, so let's just do a quick comment in closing from each of you, starting with Ben, Then Tony and Jeff will let you have the final word.
Thank you, Jennifer, and to the Ambler family. Again, I am honored to work with Attorney Edwards and Attorney Ramanucci to make sure that they know Javier Ambler II life matters. Transparency is critical in these matters. As Attorney Edwards said, if it was not for that Austin PD video, they literally would have gotten away with murder. And so it begs the question, what happened with the live PD video and why was it destroyed? Something so critical to justice. We have to make we have to make the Sheriff's Department there in Austin, Texas, understand, as the Minneapolis Police Department and Minnesota, that you cannot torture Black men and say that it is okay. If we've learned anything in 2020, is that we are going to once and for all have this necessary conversation in America, that this police brutality on marginalized people of color is going to be examined each and every time, and we will not allow you to sweep it under the rug anymore, because we love our children just like you love your children, America, and we too are Americans. Javier Ambler II was an American citizen deserving of all of the rights that the Constitution bestows on any citizen. And those rights were not extinguished once the Sheriff's Department there in Williamson County, Texas, signed a contract for reality TV to build ratings on the backs of Black and brown people. And so again, to the Ambler family, you deserve better. America, we're better than this. And Tony Ramanucci and Jeff Edwards, we will make sure that nobody forgets your son's name. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I guess, listening to your words, Ben, I guess we should all take notice that very likely today there will be a 9th member of the Supreme Court who will be sworn in. And we can only hope that we do away with this rhetoric of conservative and liberal, and that we get justice, not only from this justice, but overall in this country, that is equal. Our Constitution is about equal rights, equal protection. All men and women are created equal. And I think that's why we're here. We just want to continue to enforce what we believe in, and that everybody's entitled to the same due course in the law. And we aim to bring that to the Ambler family, and that's why I'm so grateful to be standing before you. Thank you.
And I'll be brief, but I'm encouraged by the passion of Ben and Tony, and I will say this: I'm often accused of being a little passionate in situations like these, and sometimes I have to turn to my law partner and say, "Hey, was I too passionate?" And he one time turned to me, and I'm going to say this to Ben Crump. It's almost like they killed somebody. They killed somebody. Okay? And as a very lucky, very fortunate, very affluent person who doesn't experience what Ben experiences, what the Amblers experience, what every Black person in America experiences, it breaks my heart. And the one thing that I take a little solace in is that Texans do care. It does matter. And conservative or liberal, libertarian, the antithesis, this is about a human being. And at everybody's core, you're not supposed to do somebody harm when there's no need. I come back to it. These are core basic questions that my 11-year-old daughter knows how to answer. It's not too much that a sheriff running a very sophisticated, high-budget department shouldn't know. That we have to be in federal court to ask a jury that speaks to our society. But with each of these verdicts and acknowledgments, we get a little bit closer. And again, it's up to you, Williamson County, what you do here. But make no mistake, for nearly 2 years, there was a lack of acknowledgement that someone got killed here. And when the light was shown on it, suddenly everybody is acting like this is a problem. We need to get to the place where when it happens, it's a problem. And I can't echo what Ben said enough. They killed somebody. They killed somebody. And again, I know I speak on behalf of Tony and Ben and the entire family that you will know Javier Ambler's name because it is the decent and right thing to do. And thank you for helping us put this out there. And on behalf of the Ambler family, we are grateful that an important story like this is covered, and we will do our best within the bounds of our duties as lawyers to help explain what's going on here. But at its core, I can't say it any better. Javier Ambler's life mattered, and we're going to do whatever we can to show that it does. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank you, gentlemen.
much, Tony.
For members of the media, the press release went out several hours ago. If you need that or you need anything else, certainly please reach out to press@bencrump.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.